Hello, folks. Dustin Zarni here, Democratic Elections Commissioner for Onondaga County, and welcome to Commissioner in a Car. This week, we'll be doing a wrap-up of the village elections and discussing two cases that the Court of Appeals talked about this last week. A decision on non-citizens voting in New York City, and a rendering of a remanding of the even year legislation lawsuit and appeal. So I will talk about what that means for that piece of legislation. But first, we go back to the villages. So last Tuesday, the village of Skaneateles and the village of Manlius had their March elections. Those villages were run by the Onondaga County Board of Elections. And also the village of Fabius and the village of Jordan had village elections in March, but they were run by their village clerks. So I'm not going to talk too much about the Fabius and Jordan ones. Those aren't elections that we held or ran at the Onondaga County Board of Elections. So I'm not really talking about that. Not because I don't want to, just because I don't know much about it. It's run by the village clerk. The village clerk, they don't even use our machines. They certify the election, and those elections are over. But when a board of elections runs a village election, as we did in Manlius and Skaneateles, we actually have a little bit more work to do. And we won't certify those elections until tomorrow. But it's all but done. So both the village of Manlius and the village of Skaneateles had non-competitive elections, which meant that the races that were being run, there was only one person on the ballot. There were write-in spots, but there was no real write-in campaign. And the people who won election, or who were on the ballot, will win election. They've overwhelmingly won, hundreds and hundreds of votes to just maybe a dozen write-ins. And highlighting that is Mayor Mary Sennett out in Skaneateles, winning another term, and new mayor, incoming mayor, Hank Chapman out in Manlius. He took over for long-term mayor that has been there, and now he ran, and he will be the new mayor of the village of Manlius. Now, I said that those aren't certified, and the reason we don't certify those right away, when a clerk runs an election, they can certify it the next day. But when a board of elections runs an election, the state board says that we should wait the full 7 days for the mail ballots to come in that have the ability to come in. So we sent out vote by mail ballots, and by New York State election law, they have until 7 days after the election to come in and be processed, and as long as they were postmarked on election day. So while it is unlikely that there will be much change from election night, there's been a few ballots that have been received that were timely, a few more ballots that were received that were not timely. The ones that are not timely, that means they weren't postmarked on election day or before, those are not going to be counted. The ones that are will, and then we will certify that election tomorrow. So by tomorrow night, I hope, on the onvote.net website, we will have the certified results on there and notices to the village clerks that those elections are done. But as I said, the people who ran on the ballot, I don't remember all their names, but I remember Mayor Sennett and incoming mayor Hank Chapman of Manlius. They're going to be certified as the new village election. Now, turnout was horrible. As you might imagine, a March election is always bad turnout, even when it's competitive. These were non-competitive elections. They were nice days. It was a nice day last Tuesday, so I think a lot of people might have had other things to do. But about a little bit less than 7% in the village of Manlius of eligible registered voters decided to vote in this election. A little bit more than 9% of eligible registered voters decided to vote in Skaneateles. Now, I've often made the argument that villages should move their elections to November. And it is the village's choice. I want to be very clear. The Board of Elections cannot make them do it. I would not want us to be able to make them to do it. Not the Board of Elections anyways. But there, like we saw with Baldwinsville and Fayetteville last year and Liverpool last year, or not last year, but 2 years ago, these elections have moved to November. The citizens were given a choice, and they voted like 75% to move the elections to November in those 3 villages. We've had other villages such as Elbridge, East Syracuse, Camillus, Tully, and Solvay move their elections to November, and all of them saw anywhere from 100 to up to 900% voter turnout increase. Which means that 900% more people voted in a general election that happened in November, as opposed to the general election that happened in March. That was the village of Tully. And part of that, of course, is more people vote in November. And a lot of people say, well, yeah, but then the elections are at the end of the ballot, and there will be drop-off. And sure, there will be drop-off, but that drop-off pales in comparison to the number of people who just don't bother to participate in March elections. And I also think you see more competition in November elections, although not always. I mean, we saw last year the village of East Syracuse couldn't find somebody to run for East Syracuse judge, and they had to go to a write-in vote. We've had that happen in Camillus, where the village couldn't find someone to run for a trustee position, and it went to a write-in vote. So that, despite it being in November, so that happens. However, even then, way more people decide to vote than it does in a election that is is done in March. So it's just I believe that I'm hopeful to talk to both Mayor Sennett and Mayor Chapman about possibly moving their elections to November, and even the villages of Jordan and Fabius, if they're interested in talking about that. We now have over half the villages in Onondaga County vote in November. We do have another village vote later this year in the village of North Syracuse. They vote in June. So that's going to be an interesting election. That'll be the next actual election, although early voting will be going on for the June primary at the same time as the June village election. So, and for the first time in Onondaga County, we will have a village election going on while possibly early voting in the same political subdivision, because there is no, you know what? I think we had that. No, I take that back. North Syracuse 2 years ago with the governor's election also had a primary, but we didn't have an early voting center open out in North Syracuse. We might this year, because there's rumors that there is going to be a Republican primary out in the town of Cicero. So we'll see if that goes forward. And if that goes forward, we're going to have to open up an early voting center out there. So it'll be interesting to have on one level of the North Syracuse Community Center the village election, and on the other level the primary, because they can't be held in the same room. They can't be held with the same machines, even though the Board of Elections runs the June village elections for North Syracuse. So that's going to be interesting. So now I want to talk about 2 decisions from the Court of Appeals that happened just this last week. Well, actually 1 decision and 1 non-decision. So let's start with the easy one, the non-decision. I know a lot of you, we've talked about, have watched me talk about the even year legislation, a little recap of that. This is legislation that moves many of the town's elections to even years starting next year. The New York State Legislature passed that in 2024. In 2023, and it was signed into law late in 2023. And it starts its effective date this year, shortening many of the terms for county legislators in town elections, so that the next time they run will be in an even year. That legislation was signed by the governor, And then a lawsuit was launched with Onondaga County at the forefront of this lawsuit to stop this legislation. It was filed in Onondaga County, but many other counties, Nassau, and a few others, joined the lawsuit to say that the law is violating the the charters of these counties, and that it was also unconstitutional, and but not a straight constitutional claim, because there was also claims about violating city laws and county charters, and that's why they were able to file that lawsuit in Onondaga County as opposed to the appellate court counties that New York constitutional challenges have to go to. And because they were able to do that, they did get a judge, Judge Neary, who ruled it unconstitutional and a violation last year. Now, the Attorney General and who represents the state of New York in this, decided to appeal this. Full disclosure, I am also a defendant in this lawsuit, which means that I support the even year legislation, and I have an attorney that's paid for by Onondaga County because it's in my official capacity. I was sued by Onondaga County, suing me, which is standard practice, nothing nefarious about that. But I do support the even year legislation, so I've instructed the attorney that was assigned to me by Onondaga County to have a zealous defense of it, and they've worked with the Attorney General, although the Attorney General is doing most of the heavy hitting here. Well, the Attorney General made a decision to appeal it straight to the Court of Appeals. You may remember in New York, there's the Supreme Court is actually the entry-level position for the court. Then it goes to the appellate division, and then it goes to the Court of Appeals. And so the Attorney General wanted to bypass the appellate division and go straight to the Court of Appeals so this matter could be decided quickly. That was done in December of this last year. In October, the decision came out. December, they made the decision to go straight to the Court of Appeals with it. I think it was December, it may have been November, but in any case, it's been several months. The Court of Appeals has sat on this and has not decided, even though even the plaintiffs, Onondaga County, Nassau County, and the other plaintiffs all said that they believe that it should go straight to the Court of Appeals as well. But the Court of Appeals disagrees. And so they sent that back to the appellate division, the 4th department, or is it the 5th department? One of the departments. That is now being set up for a court date. It has not been set up for a court date for appeal on this. And at this point, it doesn't look like it's there's no stay on this. So the law has been overturned, but it is on appeal. And it's going to go to the appellate division, and we expect maybe a hearing sometime in April or May, maybe May. The election docket is in May in this appellate division, so we may get a hearing on that, and we're waiting to hear back. So that's the minor decision. I took a long time to tell you the minor decision. The major decision was it ruled New York City's charter change that allowed non-citizens voting in municipal elections, which means the New York City Council and local elections down in New York City. They ruled that unconstitutional. And I actually agree with this. So hang on. So a little background on this. Several years back, I can't remember exactly which year it was, but New York City voters, the citizen voters, the ones who are citizens, voted on a charter change that allowed non-citizen votes to happen in certain local elections, municipal elections, mayor, other things. That was ruled unconstitutional, I believe, at the Supreme Court level and the appellate level, and then it went to the Court of Appeals, and they finally decided this week in a pretty large decision that that charter change was unconstitutional. It violated the New York City, or the New York Constitution, not the New York City. So the New York City charter change was not allowed, even though it was approved by the voters. Now, normally, I believe, if the voters approve on something, that they should be able to implement that. However, I have to say this trend, it's not even a trend, it's such a minor trend of a few cities around the country putting in non-citizen voting for municipal elections. I do not really agree with. But I understand the sentiment behind it. The sentiment is that these are people that are legally here, but they are not citizens yet, and they fall under our laws, so they should have a say in their representation. We're not talking about illegal citizens or illegal aliens. We're talking about, and nobody's really an alien, but illegal non-citizens, where I think it was legal non-citizens that would have a right to vote in this charter change. That being said, one of the reasons I'm kind of against this, and even though I'm pretty known to be pretty liberal, but on this one issue, and I've kind of stayed silent on it because the New York City voters decided to do this. I'm not in New York City, but now it's over, and I just kind of want to say, why I have I guess a hesitation about this type of expansion of the right to vote, because I believe in three core tenets when it comes to voting. You have to be 18, you have to be a citizen, and you have to live or have a claim to residency in the political subdivision of the leadership that you are requesting. And if you are not under those three providences, these three tenets that I have, I don't believe you should be able to vote. And because this, being 18 means adulthood. It means taking on a mantle of responsibility that is a higher tier, and I think that means something. Having to live in the political subdivision of where you want to vote, that's important too, or have a claim to residency. Sometimes people are traveling, they get to do vote by mail, absentee. I agree with that. College students may have a dual residency, so they have a choice of where to vote. They can't vote both places, but they have a choice of where to vote. There are people that are away for longer periods of time, but they have a claim back to a piece of business they own, and that's the only place they vote. And then of course, you have to be a citizen of the United States to be able to participate in our political process. And I think that's a good thing. I think all three of those are important. By the way, there is some movement in West Virginia. I read the other day of people that were businesses being allowed to vote. If they owned a business in an area, they could vote on local politics, but that means they would get two votes, one where they live and one where they have a business, and that's just crazy. And also, it's telling people that, who don't live in an area being able to decide or be part of the decision-making process for an area that they don't reside in. So, yes, I know, businesses pay taxes, all of that, but that doesn't mean just paying taxes doesn't give you a right to vote. Foreign entities pay taxes as well. They don't get a right to vote. Foreign, non-citizens pay taxes as well. They don't get a right to vote. So now I believe, citizenry is important. I believe it's sacrosanct, and while I believe that this type of legislation around the country is has its heart in the right place, I think we should expend more efforts on allowing people who are legally here an easier path to citizenship than what we do right now. So now in this political climate, it's going to be a lot harder to do, obviously. But with this issue here with non-citizens voting, I think the Court of Appeals got this right. Now, we'll see what happens with the even year legislation. But as for now, that's kind of the update. So, coming up at the Board of Elections this week, tomorrow we're going to certify the village elections, and we're moving on to the June village elections and the June primary. Next week on Commissioner Carr, I'll be talking about Shark Week. Petition Week is what I call Shark Week for election administrators in New York. This is where people file their petitions to run for office. We'll have our first day of filing in the books Monday. It's usually kind of a small day because everybody files on Tuesday, so I'll be doing a Commissioner Carr a day before. So there'll probably be 2 Commissioner Carrs on petitions. One this Monday, just kind of going over the process, and the next Monday we'll know who has filed petitions and where the potential primaries are. And throughout the month of April, we'll probably be talking about objections to those petitions as well as those objections come in. So April is brings, April showers bring May flowers. Well, April petitions bring June elections, June primaries. So we'll see how that goes. I did a weekly wonk this last weekend on the city of Syracuse. It's kind of a 100-foot view of that. I'm going to do, I have an idea for a weekly wonk on gender and age breakdowns for Onondaga County. I started doing a little bit about age in every political subdivision, but I want to do a deeper dive. I think it'll be interesting. I think there's some really good data that I can get out of the voter registration system, and I hope to release that this Friday. So that's all I got for Commissioner in the Car. Get out there. If you're a candidate, you still have one more week left to get your petitions done. One more weekend, really, to get it done, as filing is Monday through Thursday of next week. So check back, and we'll see where our races are for the June election and the fall. This next week. Big month coming up at the Onondaga County Board of Elections and in New York State. So wait for it and tune in. I'll tell you all about it. Thank you very much, and enjoy your day. Bye-bye.